So change management in government, like you mentioned, it's a bigger concern because of how infrequently they change.
Right.
And then when you do a large transformation project or an ERP implementation, that's the biggest change, probably once in their career type of change, and they're very resistant to it. What we found best is to involve end users from the beginning. Of course, there's formal change management techniques and methodologies, and we do that too. And I'm curious about what your techniques are. But what we found most effective is just bringing them along for the ride from the beginning. It can't be a project that's coming down from the mayor's office or the city manager's office. It needs to be sold as a project that's gonna, if you're about to leave and retire in 2 years, the common feedback is, why are you doing it now? Can you not wait for 2 years? But the way we sell it is, if you're leaving in 2 years, what a great way to leave a legacy. Or if you're brand new and just walked into this organization, what a great way to start off by cementing your legacy and setting things up for the way you want it. Because once you're in the government, it's rare that people leave for a while. It's just that kind of industry. What kind of methodologies do you guys use for change management?
Well, I think the first thing, getting back to your first point, is to make sure that the organization recognizes that change is going to be difficult. I think, just from my limited knowledge of government, that based on what you just said, people recognize in government that we don't do this often. We haven't changed our system in 30 years or whatever the case may be. But in private sector, where they change a little bit more, they're still slower than you might think to change. But even where they do change more often, what happens is there's a false sense of confidence that this isn't going to be that hard for our people, because they're complaining about this old system. They want a new system. They're telling us they want a new system. So change management shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
And so just getting people to recognize, without totally demoralizing them, like helping them understand this is going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. And here's what's going to happen. And here's when you're going to feel the pain of change management if you don't deal with it now. And so what we'll do is we'll do organizational assessments early on to say, okay, based on your culture and who you are as an organization, here's where we see the risks and here's where we think people are going to resist. And just to give you a good example, a lot of organizations we work with, or a subset of them, are growing through heroism or heroics. It's because you've got some really good people that, despite the bad systems, have found a way to get their jobs done. On the surface, that's great, right? But when it comes to change, those people are really hard to change, because now you're threatening their value to the organization. Because now I can't be a hero, because now you're going to automate part of my job. You're going to centralize the data. Other people can do my job now. You're not as dependent on me as a hero. And even if I have good intentions, I'm still human and I feel threatened by that. So it's anticipating those sorts of resistance to change that aren't usually nefarious. I think people think that change management or resistance to change needs to come from a negative place. It's usually coming from a positive place. It's just recognizing that what human behavior is going to happen most likely if you don't deal with that up front. And one of the good ways to do that is what you said, which is involve them early on. But then, even then, when you start redefining what their job looks like and you start saying, hey, AV, we're going to take away that spreadsheet that you've been hoarding for the last 20 years to do your job. We're going to bring that into our central system. Suddenly, you're probably going to feel a little bit like, wait a minute, I created that spreadsheet. You need me for that. And now you don't. And it's human nature, again, that what does that mean to my job? Am I going to have a job? In the private sector, they probably worry a little bit more about, are you going to eliminate my job? Maybe a little bit in the public sector too, but either way, whatever it is, there's usually fear behind that.
Yeah, well, it's I'm sure you feel this way too. When we go into a client for the first time, it's like Office Space. Right. Or the Bobs. What do you say you do here? I'm a people person.
Right.
So it's very common for, even if they know that they won't be eliminated, that function will change and they will be reassigned somewhere else. And all of a sudden, again, human tendencies. Been doing this for 20 plus years, day in and day out. Now I have to learn something else and do my job differently. And when there isn't a personal incentive in there, it's really hard to make it their project. In many ways, it just proves that these projects are not IT projects. They are mislabeled and mishandled because they are assigned to at the IT organization. In our case, that does not understand business, that don't get the nuances of finances or government accounting, and yet it's the IT department running large-scale software replacement just because it says software. but a majority of the work is business processes, is change management, is people management, and very little is technology anymore. Again, a lot of these systems do the same things, and IT's job, at least in our project, has become limited to making sure that the access to that system, if it's in the cloud or on premise, is secure, that you have the right backups, and generally people have the right kind of access to the system. Other than that, it's not an IT project.
Right. I totally agree. Yeah. And what you just described is the way projects should be. But what ends up happening, and something you and I have talked about before, is that you get organizations that don't do the planning and don't do the blueprinting to build the house, to use that metaphor. And what ends up happening is you get into the implementation and you realize, wait, I haven't spent the time to define my business processes.
Right.
I haven't addressed change management. And then all of a sudden you've got all this noise you've got to deal with. You're putting out fires and you're in reactive mode during an implementation. So you, quite frankly, a lot of organizations just don't have time now. Now I'm putting out fires. I don't have time to do all this stuff that I should have done from the beginning. Now I'm trying to solve a problem. And so and that gets off track. And once you get into that mode, it's really hard to course correct. You can't just incrementally course correct. A lot of times you got to reset and say, hey, time out. Let's just recast this entire thing because this is not working. We're going to keep going down this path that's taking us off a cliff. Let's go, kind of rethink our path here.
Yeah. And so the way clients engage you is different from the way they engage us, meaning the sales cycle is different. We have to go through an RFP process or find a contract that works. So we have a lot of time built into the sales process where we can actually educate our clients on how to go about doing an ERP replacement or digital transformation. Do you see similar things, or meaning when you are contacted by a prospect and they say we want to transform digitally or put in a specific ERP system and we don't have time for process redesign or thinking through our blueprints, how do you tackle that?
It's a great question. It's a tough one because there's a mix. So I'd say most clients that reach out to us, they sort of know how we think. I mean, they've watched videos or read blogs or whatever. They've somehow gotten to know our philosophy. And in those cases, it resonates with them. And that's the reason they're reaching out to us to talk, is because, hey, we agree with what you say or the way you think, and we want someone who's agnostic and who's going to look at the whole picture and all that stuff. But then you have a subset of them too that maybe they've seen some of the videos or content, but maybe they don't agree. And they think the way you just described, which is, this is a technology initiative. I just need to do a quick lift and shift, put a new sticker on it, and call it good. And yes, you have to educate, but those are really hard. I mean, unless you've been through it, which is why clients hire us as consultants. But at the same time, we like the clients that have some experience and gotten burned in the past, because even if it's in a different life, in a past job or whatever, and you have someone internally on the team that really knows how this project works or have been through it, unless you've been through it, it's hard we can say it. You and I can put some PowerPoints together and provide a bunch of data and stats and best practices and all of our lessons from years and years of experience. But it's not the same as if I stub my toe and screw up a project and I did it before and I don't want to do it again. So it's really hard. And so a lot of times what we'll do is we'll try to put those types of clients in touch with our clients that have been through the process or in the middle of going through the process, just to be more of a peer sounding board. And sometimes that will resonate more than, us fancy consultants coming in and try and tell them what the right answer is.